Okay, let's get going, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for being here for today's webinar. My name is Paul Sims. I'm speaking to you from Impatient Health in London, UK, and I'm about to be joined by some fantastic people for this session who I will introduce in just one moment. So we've got around about just over 700 people signed up for today's session. It's called A New Commercial Leadership, a practical data-first integration plan for post-pandemic performance in pharma. And that's what we all want, isn't it? Post-pandemic performance. And I think today's going to be a really interesting session because we're going to talk about having a dream, having a vision, having an idea of what we want post-pandemic, but also having the ability to execute, to see those dreams turn to reality. And really, who'd want to be a commercial leader today? I mean, you know, it's tough, right? We have new demands on a lot of our leadership. We need at once to be deliberate in organizing a hybrid model and knowing what we want, but we also need to be flexible because the truth is there will be ongoing uncertainty. We're not certainly going to hit some kind of beautiful plateau where we can suddenly chill out and relax. We need to be intelligent enough to use data as our guide, and also worldly enough to bring those traditional silos that have been plaguing us for so many years together, far closer together, and to make sure that both communications and data are able to transfer across the two things, the divides. So we're really, we're really moving from the back foot to the front foot. We're entering an era of ambition, of purpose, and having that vision must be clear. But as I say, we need to have that flexibility. We need to show customers what's possible. You know, they're in many cases just as confused as we have been. And I would say that we actually need some new skills within our organization. What exactly does good look like? Well, that's something we're going to talk about today. Let me introduce you to some of the people who are going to join me. You can see their faces on your screen. I am really happy to have Vicky Williams from GSK with us. She has been a fantastic speaker at multiple events from the past. Haven't had her at anything since the pandemic started on my side, and I know she's been very busy during the pandemic. Actually was the global commercial lead for COVID-19 monoclonal antibody at GSK, and developed for molecule selection all the way through to emergency approval in 12 months. So obviously huge learnings from that. But also I tend to think of Vicky as one of the more practical and pragmatic and successful, actually, general managers that we've seen in a long time, and has had a really good track record in the roles that she's had. So thank you, Victoria, for being here. Sandra has been at Almirall for just 3 months, so baptism of fire there. She's originally from Spain, was recently in South Africa. We've been talking. I think she is going to be a very impactful leader at the company. She's got several senior management roles under her belt from Novartis, Pfizer, Evofem, Grunenthal, and she was actually most recently at Roche. She was actually general manager of South Africa, head of management of the sub-Saharan Africa at Roche. So now, of course, leading the global commercial strategy, defining marketing strategy across multiple dimensions. And of course, many of the leaders at Almirall, I'm sure you'll be familiar with from the past. And she's following a line of very successful people in recent times. So really happy to have you with us, Sandra. Renee is the founder and senior consultant at a company called ProMeasure. And ProMeasure is actually a very interesting company. These guys are experts in doing exactly what I said at the beginning of this, turning those dreams into reality. These guys pursue a number of activities that range from CRM implementation to end user training, really crunching it, you know, turning what we want into reality, and working with the data, working with the people, working with the processes in order to actually make it happen. They're Viva Services partners, they're OCE integration partners, and they can guide those whole implementations and have been doing very successfully for a few years now. So Renee, absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. Right, on to the meat of today. And the first thing I actually want to do is to show you a picture. This is a picture that you made, believe it or not. This is a question we asked you when you registered for today's event. We asked a question: as part of your digital roadmap, have you moved beyond a cleanup process after the shock of the pandemic? In other words, have you moved from kind of reactive to proactive, exactly what we were saying before? And as you can see, the largest answer is yes. Yes, we have a clear digital roadmap with communicated and understood actionable insights. You guys know I have run many, many webinars, and it's rare to see such a good, clear yes to a question like this. So that's obviously fantastic. But the majority, of course, of people are in that central zone. It's something of a normal distribution, not yet, 23%, 14%. We drove those efforts during COVID, but never managed to set clear objectives, so still somewhat reactive, and nearly 20% saying we need to evaluate our activities still. 6.6%, we're still running with the pre-COVID setup, and we'll find out whether that's desirable or deliberate very shortly. Okay, so that's what you guys all think in terms of where you are. I'm going to actually get you guys to answer a question immediately about your confidence. So if you look at your screen right now, you'll see confidence in leadership direction. How confident would you describe your leadership is in terms of a clear direction as we emerge from the pandemic? So this is not whether or not you're necessarily right or wrong, it's whether or not you have a sense, an organizational sense of direction that you know where to go. So highly confident, confident but experimental, confident yet execution, implementation is not where it needs to be, not confident, still unsure or unclear, or frankly unaware, no real sense of needing to change from management so far. So I can see just over 50% of people have voted already. I'll hold this open 5 more seconds. We're going to do a few of these polls, by the way, so get your polling fingers warmed up, please. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, got nearly all of you voting there. Thank you very much. Let's look at the results. Okay, we are not highly confident, that's for sure. Yet we are also not unaware. So confident yet still experimental is the one that got over half the vote. So thank you to everybody there. Yeah, we're in okay shape, but we can do a lot better. Only 6% confident. Well, maybe that will improve over the course of this session. Let me ask our fantastic speakers to reveal themselves to us. That would be wonderful. And let me also say that today's session is being recorded. You don't need to ask me. I'm going to send that to you afterwards. I'm also going to make sure you realize that all of our speakers today are speaking from their own perspectives, not necessarily representing their companies. You can actually turn subtitles on. This is something new we're trying. So if you want to turn subtitles on, they were automatically created as we speak. We tested it. It seemed pretty accurate, actually. So have a go with that. And of course, what we really, really want is for this not to be a one-way conversation. Let's make it a discussion, a debate even. In fact, if you haven't done already, I want to see everybody right now introduce themselves in the chat window. Please say who you are, say where you're from, say why you're here, say what you ate for breakfast, whatever it is. We want to hear from you, and let's start that conversation going. Okay, guys, so that was my rather colorful introduction. Let's start with the start. What is the opportunity now from where you sit? How would you describe the place you're in, both mentally and physically right now? This is I really want to hear from Sandra and Vicky on this. And what are your kind of key frustrations and barriers as we move into this phase going forward? So do let me know. Whoever wants to go first.
I can start, Vicky. Thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure being here. Very excited. So where I am, I'm excited. And I think everyone is excited at the moment because we feel that finally we are able to meet again for a long time. I can see many, many teams that could not meet before that now we are meeting and we are excited. The risk with that is that we go back to how things were before. And that's not where we want to be. We want to really get the learnings that we got during the pandemic, and I know it was not easy at all, and to incorporate them in a more hybrid model. And when we talk about hybrid meetings, it's not the same as talking about hybrid model, because hybrid meetings are not easy. We need to be able to learn how to manage them, and especially not just the meetings, but everything that we do, how we can acquire the learnings and really enable all the different tools that we have to be extremely successful in a more digital world without losing the face-to-face interactions. That's what I would say. What I would say is the first blocker is our fear of risk-taking. And I'm not saying we cannot be compliant. We must be compliant. We need to be careful on how we do things. But that doesn't mean that we can keep doing how we used to do things. I hate when we say, let's go back to normality. No, please, no. Let's not go back to normality. Let's get the learnings that we got and apply them now.
Excellent introduction. Victoria.
I'm also really energized and optimistic at the moment. I think that we've never seen such a sort of seismic shift in our industry in the 20 plus years that I've been working here, in terms of the bit that excites me is our customers' expectations. And I don't think we've seen such a big change in our customers' expectations in the last 20 years, and their demand of getting information a different way, how they might see the pharmaceutical industry, how they want to interact with us, has radically changed during COVID. And I think that is a huge opportunity. What frustrates me is lack of agility, and can we pick up the pace and move as fast as we need to? And some companies I think are doing that, and some others aren't as quick at doing it. Can we adapt our systems and processes, ways of working, to really match the requirements and needs for our customers? And that's very exciting, but we showed we can be flexible and we can be pacey and we can be agile during COVID. What frustrates me is now when I see us slipping back a bit to slow and a bit not losing some of that pace, and I'm very energized to try and keep that in our industry, in our company. And I'm similar to Sandra. I don't want to go back to pre-COVID. I want to take the learnings and accelerate, and that really excites me.
It excites you. Are you confident that you can deliver? And I don't want you to just say yes to that question, because it's easy, of course. You probably say yes every day to your own employees. But to both of you, Sandra and Victoria, do you genuinely feel that, firstly, what we all said, this new collaborative atmosphere that we were able to create during COVID, do you feel like it's reality? And do you feel that you actually have the tools, the know-how, the knowledge, the motivation within your workforce, not just yourselves, that are going to get you there?
I would be in the middle of the poll. So I think I'm confident that I can adapt my leadership to, I think, what is required at this stage. But I am very aware that I do not know everything in terms of how we need to be working differently with data, how we do really truly implement omni-channel journeys. I'm just not an expert in this. And I think as leaders, we can't, particularly those of us who've been in the industry for a while, can't pretend that we are. And therefore that need to bring in different skills, different competencies, diversity of experience is more important now than ever, Paul. Because that, huge experience I've had managing big sales forces, which I'm pretty good at, is not the only thing I'm going to need to be good at going forwards. And I think, therefore, being humble, knowing what you need to attract in an organization, looking for the right skills is really, really important, as well as understanding that the expectations of leaders have changed in the pandemic, and that demands a different approach from all of us. So moderately confident, but I can't do it on my own. and I need to be kind of aware of that, and that's okay. So Sandra, how about you?
That's very good, because I'm with you. I'm confident I can learn. I'm confident we can do it. Do I know everything? Not at all. Do we need to do it together? Absolutely. And we need to do it together with our stakeholders, all of them, in a partnership. What I like about the pandemic is that it opened new ways of doing things. Before, it's impossible to have a call virtually, impossible to have strategic meetings virtually. Now we can. Now we truly can, and we show that we can, right? To go to the next level for me is where I'm excited, I'm fully comfortable? No, I'm uncomfortable, but that's good because that's what makes us grow. And I think for me, the critical component is let's maintain that mindset. That mindset that going back to normality is not good enough. Move forward is where we need to be, right? And learning how to move forward, how to be uncomfortable to then reach new highs. That's where we need to go. That's what we need to do together with our customers.
Yeah, I'm having these moments at the moment, Sandra, where my team are coming and like telling me stuff that they've done on sort of channel journeys, and I'm like, I didn't even know we could do that. That's so cool. But actually, maybe my leadership is just enabling and empowering people to be able to do those things because they're the experts, and me creating the environment and ensuring we've got the systems and processes and accountability that they can do it. But I keep on being surprised by, wow, that's brilliant. That is so much more, less of a push from Pharma and more of a pull from our customers. And that's really exciting because then we're delivering much higher value than we ever have before. But yeah, I'm constantly surprised at the moment of these brilliant things that they're coming up with.
And I think that's what is about commercial leadership, because it's about not knowing and your team surprising you. It's empowering others to come with new ideas and all big wow, and support them to enable them from, processes, compliance, resources if necessary, and going beyond, accelerating what happened during the pandemic and taking it to next levels, including digital therapeutics. That's another area where I'm impressed, because R&D and recruiting patients was sometimes a challenge during the pandemic. And now we are looking at digital therapeutics, and enabling that is another area where we think about digital, another area to really consider. And as leaders, is about being open about it, is really encouraging our teams to explore these new ways and really coming with new solutions.
Yeah, Paul, I think me and Sandra are going to be able to talk the whole time.
I know. I might have to butt in. This is fantastic. Yeah, exactly. I love chatty people on webinars. But let me bring Renee in. Renee obviously sees across multiple companies, has a vested interest as well in making sure our companies do well, but also a nuanced view, shall we say? So, Renee, what's your sense of confidence from the people you work with? Not just competence, but competency as well.
Well, I think that. It's great that there's a lot of confidence and that we have, a vision from senior leaders on where to go. I think that being on the, let's say, on the receiving end of that strategy, of those visions, and really having to put them into play, that's obviously always challenging because, as you say, leaders do not know everything. So this is going to be this forth and back on defining what is the actual strategy, how do we actually do this, and I think that is also what I think would create some tension or maybe even some of that inertia of we want to go back to where we were because that's kind of a comfort zone and we know that we're doing a good job there. So I think what we need is more confidence and also perhaps some more clear guidance in terms of, where does that confidence want us to go, right?
Okay. I'm going to ask everyone this question. What do you believe is the priority in order to get us there? Is it skills and mindset, our people, basically, or is it tools and technology and process? And of course, you're going to say the first option because everybody always does. But bear in mind our customer expectations, as you very well pointed out, both of you, Sandra and Victoria, at the beginning, have been moved by consumer electronics, obviously by what's happened. And I would argue that many of them don't have necessarily a customer-facing, human-facing angle to them. So there is certainly a place here for technology and process. So give us your honest reflection on that question. What is the priority? Where do we need to invest today, literally with dollars, effort, time, input, in order to make sure that we're not a year from now a little bit sorry about how little progress we made?
I don't mind. Talent, 100%. I mean, I am going to say the first one, Paul, because, of course we need the right systems and processes, but how many times have we all seen systems and processes that just become redundant because we haven't got the right skilled people to work with them and really understand the power of them. And I think that my absolute priority is about recruitment and talent management and talent development, because then those people, if they've got that level of motivation and competency, will help find the solutions with the systems and processes, and be curious and be ambitious. One can't come before the other. It's got to be the talent priority for me. I'm sorry, I am going to say the
That's
first.
okay. It's okay.
Because then those great people, there's great, you know, Paul, great people find a way. They do, and it's you. But the other way, a great system can't find great people, and you've got to start with the people and the team.
Well, you'll be pleased to know the audience is with you, getting positive reinforcement there in the chat. Sandra, Renee, I'd love to hear you as well on this.
Well, I would say we need both, but we need to prioritize one. I'm with Vicky. Everything starts with people. The tools and the technology are enablers of ideas, enablers of new ways of working, but on themselves, on its own, they will make a difference. They will make a change. We need the people behind them and the right mindset, right? People who wants to experiment, leaders who wants to encourage experimentation and empowerment. That's what I would say. I would put, again, my priority number one.
I would, I'm not going to disagree with, because people, at the end of the day, it is the people driving both processes and the technology that we're implementing and using and so forth. But I do think that we will also have to invest or at least upskill and also upgrade on technology in terms of, let's say, more analytical tools, and really start working, I would say, more scientifically with how people actually, or how our customers would actually engage with the various channels that we're exposing them to. So I definitely think that that's something like, better analytical tools, and of course more skilled people in that area is highly needed.
Yeah, and I think, well, I think our ability, the talent that we're looking for, who can do what Renee's just explained with the systems. There's a real kind of war for that talent, and I think also what people are looking for when we were recruiting them has changed after the pandemic, and so it's all kind of evolving, and that's, I think, another part of our commercial leadership is about how do you attract these great talents to your company when their demands have changed, and actually we're all going after the same competencies.
Well, I was about to say exactly that, because it's all very well to say talent, but the usual criticisms. We're not attracting those most talented people in the world. We're somehow, despite the fact that health should be the most emotive and exciting area in the world, we somehow think we're going to work with battery improvement at Elon Musk's office is the place to be. We don't. We're often guilty of not giving that talent a mandate when it comes in. We restrict it. We micromanage it. We don't allow it to flow freely. We obviously get people to work in silos, and we don't give them all of the tools and data they need as a result of that big picture view. So many criticisms that we overcome. So what's actually going to change this time? We've been here before, I'm afraid to say. So, what is happening that is going to make sure that those talents can spread their wings and can actually have the effect that we need?
There's a couple of things I would like to highlight here that I think that the pandemic really helped. One is that before, talent would need to sit where the headquarters or where the job was, and that limits many options, right? And here I'm going to bring a perspective of people who cannot move, and here I'm going to bring the perspective of diversity, where you have a family, your partner might not want to move, or you have family to look after, you cannot move. It's harder to get talent that you want in locations that are hard to reach or that are less attractive. Now we know, and we could see that you don't need to work where you live. You can live in many other places, and that's expanding, hopefully even more, the talent pool that we can reach. Additionally, I see another component, and is more risk-taking in companies on developing people in different roles. Not that you need to have a clear path, right? If you are in marketing, then you are in, you keep growing in the same path. I see a bit more diverse, open mindset. And I think the new generations are demanding that, where you can go in different ways. It's not a career like this. It could be that it's a career more like this. And it's okay. That's exactly what we need. Because if we are looking at different talent that can really go and grow, and we can take risk. Someone who started in marketing might end up in regulatory, or someone who started in sales can end up in digital. That I think is something that the companies, or at least where I am and where I've been, we are investing more, and not expecting that someone has all the capabilities to be able to start a new position in a new department.
Maybe also on a more cynical note, I think that what we've also seen post-pandemic, or actually during the pandemic, is a lot of senior leaders coming to that realization that some of those crazy ideas, some of those high-tech fancy projects that were pitched or wanted it, that people wanted it to initiate at pre-pandemic, that they might actually have a place now, right? Because as we know, the HCPs, they're not going to go back to pure face-to-face calls and offline, right? So I think that it also opens up the, let's say, the area for a more diverse set of people to have those crazy ideas and actually pitch them and actually get somewhere with it. Not necessarily as what they intended, but they will get somewhere and they will be great.
Yeah.
Okay, this is all very good, but I want to also cover the issue of process and technology as well, just in this conversation. And if we limit our conversation to there, by the way, I'm not discounting the conversation on people, processes. We could easily spend the rest of our webinar talking about that. But what are the system changes, the tool changes, the training changes that we actually need to upgrade and continually improve going forward? And do those apply to just commercial, or should they apply across the organization? And are we actually getting sufficient investment and latitude to be able to put them into practice, not just buying the shiny tool necessarily, but actually being able to do all of the extra additional follow-up and implementation things to make sure those tools are understood and utilized to their maximum benefit? Are we actually succeeding on this front? No.
Not yet.
I think that one of the things that we'll see, or that at least is my hope, is an increased local ownership and agility in the way that we apply these tools. So in the pre-pandemic, decade before that, we're very focused on rolling out global templates, harmonizing everything, consolidating all kinds of processes in more of a less of one size fits all. I think that if we are to actually succeed, also becoming even more digital going forward, we need to hand some of that ownership back to the local businesses, and we have to also acknowledge that that kind of comes with a cost as well. So local ownership is going to be critical to actually get in touch with people, or get in touch with our customers through those channels that
Vicky, I'm sure will agree with you because she's a general manager. Sandra, you've been on both sides of the coin recently. I'd be very keen to start with your response to Renee, if that's okay. Where should the power be? Where should the implementations, therefore, of the tools be?
I think everywhere, in every single layer. Because look, I discovered so many new tools. I didn't know even they existed, right? And so many of them, by the way, are for free. You have versions that they are not expensive. So I think the ownership is from every single layer, because it depends on the goal of how we want to use that tool, right? And for me, it's across departments. It's not just in the commercial arena or department that we need to be considering these tools and processes, because it's a change of mindset. It's about being proactive, right? As a commercial leaders, it's about being proactive and using those tools proactively for every single thing that we do, internal and external. with internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, right? And therefore, I think that is in every single layer and in every single department where we need to be considering those tools the same way that we need a pen.
Okay. Victoria, any comments from you? Well, actually, while you're commenting, I'm just going to launch another poll because I have a question on precisely this topic. So I would love to see what the audience thinks, whether they are going to be fully aligned with what you said, Renee, and what you said, Sandra, or not. So Victoria, people can read while you talk.
So I think that where we are is that the systems are just a bit clunky. I think where we used to have systems that were a bit siloed by function, whether it was medical or sales, and we just didn't have an integration. And often those systems were more focused on internal reporting than providing value to our customer. So I think where we need to change is put is orientation around the customer rather than our internal measurements and reporting. And I think then we start to get processes and systems that are much more integrated and adding value. Agile doesn't, that can be used cross-functionally, and that's, a customer doesn't care. They want to know how a company is providing value in lots of different communication channels and contact points. So I think it's a bit clunky because we're caught in between these two worlds, and we kind of need to decide where our systems and process should be focused. And at the moment, I feel like we've got a kind of we're sitting on two stools, really.
As long as not between the two stools. The poll is ongoing. I can see just over half of you. I'm actually watching the results coming in live on my screen here. It's very interesting. It's pretty much even Stevens right now to all of these four options. So I'm going to hold that open another 5 seconds, see if a winner emerges. What is the primary role of technology within your organization going forward? Is it harmony, exactly as Renee said, we're moving away from, providing that stability, that dashboard, that kind of international single view? Or is it to provide flexibility, empowering local teams, ownership and accountability back to the countries? Is it about efficiency, less expensive ways? That's where technology can be of most utility. Or is it about skills, backing what we said about people earlier? I'll hold that open. We've had 2/3 of you vote now. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Let's have a look at the results. You might be surprised by this. Efficiency wins. I don't know whether to be happy or sad. I'm actually sad a little bit. Maybe those who wrote efficient can justify their answers, right? Please write in the chat window and tell us why you think that's the most important. I think that efficiency is a lazy option. I have to be honest with you. I think efficiency is all about turning offline to online and very much replicating the offline world as efficiently as possible, as opposed to thinking new business models, 2.0 generation. Business models that would never have existed offline, as indeed big tech never could have. That's my personal opinion. Love to hear yours. Fight with me, argue with me if you like. Anything from the panel on that?
I think I would have gone for, I would have changed number 2, Paul, and I would have gone to provide flexibility and agility.
Yeah, so I can talk about agility all day long, but I guess
so yeah, I would have gone for the empowerment of local teams around the customer, and being able to be flexible and agile in response to the customer's needs. That's what I think that the
maybe that would have been if I'd written it like that.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
That's and I mean, I just took you had a comment, Vicky, on clunky systems, right? And I think the clunky system syndrome is actually a result of this harmonization and treating everything as one size fits all. Honestly, I think that's what makes a lot of the solutions that are out there kind of clunky, because it's not adjusted to what you need.
Very good point.
Yeah, it's a fair point. What I would say is I like all of them. So what I would provide is an alternative answer, which maybe it's all of them are important, and what we really need to do is to be more impactful. And then depending on the stage of the organization where we are, the roadmap might be different. And we might need to start with being more efficient, being more organized, to then bring flexibility, right? So it might be that we need all of them, and it will depend on the stage of that organization where we need to focus the most. At the end of the day, for me, the biggest goal is to improve our impact in everything that we do. From skilling people to our interactions with customers, to our efficiencies internally, minimizing duplications, right? So I'm bringing all of them together so I can take all of it.
Indeed. Okay, well, you've heard from everyone about the frustration, the challenge, but also the opportunity ahead. I want to ask Renee if you can share a couple of slides at this point, because I think you may well have some interesting answers to those questions. So do you want to do that?
Yeah, let me just.
And this is just going to be a few minutes of slides, and then we are going to do another phase of discussion after this. So stick with us. Renee, over to you.
So you can see the slides now.
Yep.
All right. I'm not gonna tie you up, but just a short note on ProMeasure, because I guess most of you do not know who we are. We're a small boutique consultancy in Denmark, solely focused on the life science industry and working only with the Force.com platform, so Viva, OC, and standard Salesforce. So what we do is really implementing these systems, implementing projects around this type of technology. And I think that, you know, from the challenges that we see, they stem mostly from these local or regional implementations of systems. And I think the first point that we see as a challenge is always the business strategy, because we're talking about global systems, local business strategy. There tends to always be this this harmony between where the business wants to go and what global templates or global systems would like you to do. So a lot of work needs to be done in this area to actually make either one of them give a little and adjust. So being more flexible on the templates and that part of the IT strategy would definitely help. Another thing is we often see that when projects are implemented, it's very rare that we have a good predefined set of KPIs or metrics to actually track our progress. Not only progress in terms of the project itself, that's usually something that we do have, but what are the actual business KPIs that is foreseen as part of this business strategy that we're now trying to implement. So being much more concrete on this, being concrete in KPIs and in well-defined metrics is also going to help get the local ownership, because at the end of the day, it's the local owners who would be driving these KPIs, and obviously they need to have a say on how we drive this forward. Having said that, that also leads to the next piece, which is really what we've also talked about already, is the experiment, or being more experimental in the way that we implement systems. So during the pandemic, we implemented quite a lot of remote meeting and email solutions for various companies. And one of the, let's say, one of the key common traits of all these implementation was that when we were saying what is the success rate, when is this good, they were like, well, if they just send a few every week or every month, but not really having it as an experiment. And in my mind, that is what I characterize as a pilot. You know, let's do a pilot, let's see what happens, and there's no assumptions in before we actually initiate the project. So creating these experiments, having clear assumptions and clear KPIs on where we want these experiments to go. And if they fail, so be it. Then we've learned something, we've documented it, and we can move on for another project. All of these things is basically what will lead to adoption or to a better adoption if we know exactly where we're going, if we have aligned the technology to our strategy, and if we know that we can fail forward, and we will fail forward with these experiments. Usually adoption is better because we all know where we need to be. The way that we usually look at this is we have these, as already mentioned, key areas, so people, process, platform, and performance this time. So obviously aligning the people and the process and the platform is eventually going to lead to whatever performance outcome that we're getting. So being even more clear in terms of where we want to go, that will help also guide the people and all the end users that are actually going to be part of this. And one thing I would say is we need to have people onboarded, or actually the whole change management process actually should start already before the strategy is completed, because the people or the end users of any platform, any process, any tool, we're by far the slowest one to actually adopt. So it's always the people who's the latest one to arrive at the party when we're implementing something. Technology is usually not the biggest problem. So yeah, so just on short, I think that we have a burning platform, and we have a burning platform because customers actually expect us now to do differently. They expect to be more digital, more agile, and basically within arm's reach whenever they need information. So going forward, I think that we need to change or at least adjust the way that we think strategy, and do that digital first, and then figure out where do we actually apply salespeople, and where does people apply from, where do they fit into that whole process of the strategy. And then we need to be very, very keen on doing experiments and allow ourselves to fail, and start out small, plan to scale, and then if it fails, then we'll move to something new. And finally, we need to create a roadmap, because again, people will, they will not be able to absorb the amount of changes that we need to go through in the next years to actually arrive at a new way of working, at a new business model. So we need to roadmap this. We need to slice the elephant, so to speak, because otherwise people will simply drown in these changes, and it will also make everything more expensive as we're doing everything on top of each other. Right. So yeah, this is this final slide is just again to show this is where we're passionate about at my little company. Really, this whole digital operational transformation. So making the strategy come down and be part of the process, the people, and the platform. So that was my.
Thank you, René. Thank you. Really appreciate it, and really interesting how a company that is, as I said before, and as you illustrated, a cruncher of technology actually integrating all of these things, still places such a strong emphasis on the human elements of it as well. But something that came up, at least 2 or 3 people asked this while you were talking, got a question about, it was about KPIs, and it's a real challenge to ID KPIs. This is Leah Hope. ID KPIs when carrying out new online initiatives. It needs a real understanding of what success actually looks like and acceptance of that from senior leaders. And then Simon Williamson asks, to continue to move forward and not look back, we need to know what are the right measures to assess performance. What are the new measures that need to be adopted to illustrate the success of the new ways of working post-pandemic? So two very similar questions. Do you, if you know, we have to have flexibility, but we have to know what success looks like in order to be able to set the right measures and know if we're getting any closer to it and make sure we're all incentivized and pointing in the right direction. What is the answer? What are the new, what's your attitude, shall we say? Let's start there. What's your attitude, Vicky and Sandra, to KPIs, whether we want new ones, whether we don't, whether we want to enforce them strongly or not? You talked about Vicky Williams. My big bugbear is that I don't think we use we don't use metrics strongly enough, and thus we don't learn enough, and thus agility is impossible in our organization so much of the time. That's my position. Feel free to.
I think we use too many and not the right ones. So,
oh no, I agree that. Yeah, but we need to use them.
Yeah. So I think that there's a difference between an outcome and a KPI. KPI is an indicator. It's a tool to show where are we going on our kind of journey, and our, you know, clearly in pharma that's about, you know, our medicines reaching more of the right patients, or medicines and vaccines reaching the right patients, and that ultimately is our goal and the ultimate measure. I think KPIs are a way of challenging ourselves to be able to do that more effectively, and therefore I think I'm trying to hone down on what are the one or two things per brand that will really enable us to achieve that purpose, and then being very relentless about following those, rather than, I think we got to a stage where we were just looking at everything possible, and then you know, to Renee's point, people are completely lost along the route, and also it seemed to become our purpose to fulfill KPIs rather than our broader purpose, which is to help patients. And so I think my job is to find, you know, the right ones and not reinvent the wheel all the time. Relentlessly look at those KPIs and be very clear about how those KPIs link to our broader purpose, because otherwise I feel like you just lose an organization in data paralysis, and actually that passion for our job and what we're ultimately here to do gets completely and utterly lost in dashboards and traffic lights, and it drives me up the wall. So yeah, really? I think that's my you know, nobody gets up in the morning for a KPI. They get up because we're changing patients' lives, and you know, I think KPIs sometimes we just forget that.
Yeah. Sandra, do you agree?
Yeah, I'm with Vicky and Renee that we have far too many, and we spend too much time tracking those many KPIs that we have. At the same time, I really think that we need KPIs because we need to be able to measure if our experimentation and our projects are really being successful or not. I believe as well that we need to evolve those KPIs because our business model hopefully is changing as well. And I really like when we start talking about value-based healthcare, when we are talking about fee per risk, you know, of per success, instead of just a fee per hour, right? And that's where I see partnership changing, business model changing. And I do it in both ways. We can do it in a market access sense where, you know, we look at success of our patients being in treatment, and then defining the pricing this way in a very simple manner. It could be as well with our vendors that we work with. When we work in different projects with them, that instead of paying fee per hour, depending on the seniority of the hours and the people that they bring in, but doing it free for success, depending on how we do it. And that's happening. And I think that we need to go more in that way. Additionally, when we talk about KPIs, I discovered recently, started using advanced analytics and artificial intelligence to link that with revenues and to really look at KPIs in new eyes. And I love it. I love it. Always bearing in mind that then we need to stop some to then use just those. We always need to have few and very meaningful, right? That would be my critical comment there. But we need to evolve them without a doubt.
Renee,
but I think that I actually tend to agree. I think the main challenge here is that for far too long, we've been very much focused on push KPIs. So how much did someone do? How much did someone not do? When did they do it? And so forth. I think that there will always be a need for behavioral KPIs, right? So at the end of the day, we want really to track if both our field force, if our internal people and HCPs and so forth actually exhibits the behavior on whatever tool, on whatever platform that we expect them to do, right? But at the end of the day, we should rearrange our KPIs to be much more focused on the outcome of a behavior, which would actually be an indicator for whether or not they are buying or doing what we want them to do through that channel, right? So I think we definitely need to review the KPIs. I'm not sure that I'm all in favor of reducing and getting less KPIs. I love it because that's the way that you engage people, and it spurs really good discussions, and it gets creativity going. But we definitely need to change them.
I'm not sure you René, I agreed with most of what you said, apart from the way to engage people is through KPIs. I don't believe people do. They get engaged through purpose. And
you get one or two projects.
So
one or two projects where you can see change. That helps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Guys, I need to move the conversation on. We've only got 8 minutes, believe it or not. Time flies when you're having fun. But lots of good comments in the chat window. Keep them coming. Good to see you, Loda. Good friend Loda makes some very smart points, I think, about our metrics there. I want to talk about customers. Not a word we've actually said that much during this session. And I guess I would love to just find out what you guys feel like I want to ask. Actually, I'm going to start by just doing this. I'm going to start by doing another little poll question, and this question is not something I expected to ask very much about, but it's something that we ended up talking about in our pre-chat before this session, which is about working practices, very practical thing, but also how that extends to our customers. So, firstly, what is your attitude to working practices for your staff or your team? What do you believe is best? Should everybody be on site, perhaps as you would say, our pre-pandemic way, or should everyone be off site as much as possible? We've talked about how talent is only available to us, or better available to us, if geography is no longer a consideration. Should we be mandating a hybrid model where we're in the office sometimes and not? Or should we be going total freedom? The individual can choose what works best for themselves. So all of those questions. And then obviously I want to then ask, given the above, how do we expect to work with stakeholders and customers? Obviously, I'm thinking heavily about the field staff here as well. Where should we meet our customers? Wherever they are, in person, virtually where possible, because it's more efficient, more flexible. We should invest ourselves to make sure that we're always giving them the choice, or shut up about channels and focus on maybe just being in one or two channels and focusing on a quality experience within that channel, which is actually something I tend to say when I'm on stage. So, I'm now curious as to whether or not anyone agrees with me. I guess I'm about to find out. So I can see the alert half of you, the good half of you have voted. I'll hold it open another 3 seconds for the rest. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you very much. Got a flurry of votes in at the end. Let's have a look at the results. Right, what have we got? Okay, so not on site, 4%. Off site only 11%. The word mandatory, I thought would put people off, but that's been the winner. Mandatory 1 to 3 days in the week, otherwise flexible, and then total freedom also. So those are the two winners. Once again, going for that middle zone, perhaps you could say. And then with customers, and I focus on HCPs when I say customers in this instance, 20% roughly where they are, only 6% pushing them towards digital. Interesting. Nearly 40% saying, let's invest to give them that choice. And yeah, not too far off, only slightly less than that is the choice of channel. That's actually higher than I expected. So Maybe a few people have been listening to me too often. Silly people. What do you guys think? Very curious on that. And I'm actually going to launch another. I've got all these polls here. I want to get them out before we finish. So I'm going to launch another poll while we talk about this. What do you guys think?
That's such a hot topic, right, Paul? Because everyone has an opinion about it. And I can tell, I live it myself. It always brings so much controversy when we talk about being at home or working at the office. What I know is that there's no one answer that fits all, because I could see within my teams people that really were super happy by having the freedom to work from home. Others were really nostalgic and really needed the people. So I think having a flexible option is, for me, the best option, because there is no answer that fits all. And regarding customers, I'm very eager to the same answer, right? Because I think we need to adapt what the preferred option is, and listening to them and adapting to them without ever forgetting the quality that we need to have.
And is that okay? Because in a way you're saying flexibility, keep it open. Is that enough of a destination? We talked about having a destination earlier. Is that strong enough?
I believe in empowering people, and that's part
of
empowering people.
Okay.
Well, I've got a slightly different view, and because it's about because of gender equality, actually. So if it's flexible, we know from recent studies that the majority of people who will choose to be at home, the majority of time, are still women, because they are, on the whole, having two roles often, and it's still the case. And therefore, if it's kind of more of our male colleagues who are continuing to come to the office and are more visible and are more connected, you know what? Who's going to progress? Actually, women are kind of excluding themselves, and therefore I'm much more in favor of some mandatory time in the office and then flexibility. It doesn't need to be up to 3 days, but I think we know now that we've taken steps back in terms of gender equality, a lot of it because women are not as visible or as present, and I think that's a worrying trend, and therefore that's really takes me to this some mandatory days. On the second question about HCPs, I still believe in the power of the sales force as our most effective tool when it can be used. And therefore, I think when we can meet our customers in person, that's the most effective channel still. It's the only channel you can close with, and really ask for that change in behavior. And so I'm still a big believer in the sales force, but I think it needs to be, therefore I went for the first one, which is meeting customers where they want to meet us, so meeting their needs, but if possible, I would still want access for Salesforce.
Okay. Well, there's a question up at the moment about the field force. We'll reveal the answers in the end in a moment, but René, anything quickly to say on this?
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with with Vicky on having some stable attendance at the office, if it's mandatory or not. That's what it is, but I do think that in general you should come to the office, and then you can work from home whenever special arrangements. In terms of the HCPs, I definitely believe that we should meet them where they want, when they want, and I also believe that at the end of the day we'll have a setup where it will be the HCPs would actually request our sales force to come and finalize that piece of information, that educational session that they would need, because when we cover all the other channels digitally, they would actually want us to be there and close the deal.
Yeah. Okay, I'm super aware of time. We're basically running out of it. You can see I've got another poll that has been answered in the meantime. A very strong winner here on the future of the field force to provide good customer experience and engagement in whatever form it takes. Only 9% of people, Vicky, saying actually selling. I'm not surprised by that, because I've asked a poll on that a few years ago and it was a similar answer. So I can see we haven't changed over the last few years. But listening is nearly 20% of people. Only 2% of people saying it should disappear. Right, I'm afraid, guys, God, we're out of time. I'm going to be a little bit sneaky and throw in a final question, which you can just answer if you like while I am closing this out. It's about barriers. What's the greatest barrier to your company's greatest commercial initiative. It's something we've touched on a few times during this conversation, but I do want to be respectful of your time. I'm sure you've got a very important meeting to go to now, but of course I have to say a huge thank you to Vicky, Sandra, Renee. It's been absolutely fantastic to work with all three of them. Renee's organization ProMeasure has been a partner in actually making today's session happen. It's been fantastic working with their team on making sure that happens. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being chatty in the chat window. And do let me know what you'd like to see in the future, whether or not there is something more you want to hear from us on this area. Massive thanks to you guys for giving us your energy and insight here. Let's go on. Let's have a quick look. I got 50% of you to actually answer this final question. Let's have a look at what you all said. 0% on third-party solutions. Renee did a great job there, clearly. Right, we have a joint winner, don't we? 29% on capabilities and organizational structure. All things within our control. Come on, people. We can do this. Let's bring that confidence back that was exuded at the beginning of this conversation. Thank you so much, guys. I'll let you go now. Really appreciate your time.